Good evening and welcome to the April 29th, 2024 Mangan Park Neighborhood Association meeting. My name is Jennifer Holden. I am the Mangan Park Neighborhood Association leader, and we have a wonderful agenda this evening. First, we will hear from our council members, Chief of Staff, Ryan Brown, with some updates for Mangan Park. And we've been doing some good work, in District 5 with Caity Maple's office and Mangan Park. Then we'll hear from Lieutenant Greg Galliano, who has apparently got big news to share with us. And then hopefully Assemblymember Kevin McCarty will have joined the meeting. And we have a couple of really great questions for him about current and recent legislation that he's been working on. And then I think the AB 617 committee is supposed to be in, giving us an update on air quality monitoring grants in Mangan Park. And Pete Spaulding is already here of American River Trees to talk to us about efforts at conservation on the American River. And the last agenda item is conversation about upcoming city budget reductions and how residents of Sacramento can participate in the process. So that's a big agenda. We're up for a lot tonight, but we can get there. So Ryan Brown, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Jen. And yeah, as Jen mentioned, my name is Ryan Brown. I am proud to be serving beautiful District 5 as the Chief of Staff to Vice Mayor Caity Maple, who represents the Mangan Park, Hollywood Park, and basically the whole North-South 99 corridor on the Sacramento City Council. And I am coming number one with a huge thank you, not only to Jen, but to our entire Mangan Park community for making our cleanup event this last weekend. Was it this last weekend? I think it was. No, not this weekend, but last one. Right. Smashing success. We picked up, cleaned up over 20 cubic yards of trash from Mangan Park, from 34th Ave, and from the surrounding streets, including some large debris that was left at the very end. And we're so excited to see that cleared up. Mangan Park is looking better than ever. I'm also, and so I'm incredibly thankful for everybody who made it out and helped make that happen. Number two, just wanted to give a heads up, and I know Erica's here and she can probably speak a little bit more on that later, but all of the city stuff has been submitted over to her office in preparation for the grant that Assemblymember McCarty has arranged for Mangan Park to receive for our infrastructure improvements. And I'm so incredibly excited to see that start to come to fruition. Thank you so much to Erica and the Assemblymember for shepherding that and for consistently and kindly reminding me when we had approaching deadlines. Finally, my biggest update is I am coming to y'all, Jen, you'll love this, with some good news on the budget. And so we got our briefing today. The proposed budget with the reductions will be published tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out. And based on the numbers that I am seeing, the strategies that we're taking, we have managed to avoid all level 3 and 4 cuts to the budget. Not a single one has made it through. When that means that the pools are not cutting down their open days, amongst other things. And so I'm really, really proud that we've seen that through. We're using exclusively low and medium impact cuts, level 1 and 2, and not even leveraging all of them. And so that's something that we've been fighting for, that we'll continue to fight for. And please keep an eye out tomorrow morning. It'll probably be before 10 a.m. is my guess that will come out. And then on the 7th, the Budget and Audit Committee will be doing an overview. And then the council will be having a hearing that night at 5 p.m., as well as the following week, May 14th, 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. will be continued budget hearings. May is budget season for us here at the city. It will go to the Measure U Commission on May 20th, and then it will get its final review by the Budget and Audit Committee May 28th. And the final budget adoption is planned for the 5 p.m. City Council on June 11th. So we'll be posting all of this on our social media tomorrow morning at Caity Maple D5 as soon as the budget drops, so keep an eye out. But I'm incredibly proud of the city's budget staff that has worked hard to make this happen without, draconian core service cuts. And as the member has mentioned, and both of us have talked about kind of through lines is, we're not going to accept core cuts to core services. And that includes our pools, our parks teams, and our recreation opportunities. And so I'm really proud to see that that's come through. In terms of other updates, very briefly, let me pull up my newsletter and make sure that I'm not missing anything, which, oh boy, where is it? There we are. So we've got that coming through. A reminder that we have the Sacramento ADU Fair coming up on May 4th. Are you thinking of building an additional unit or two on your property? An ADU or a granny flat is a great way to add value to a property and create more housing in Sacramento. Co-hosted by the Casita Coalition and the Greater Sacramento Urban League. We'll be hosting an ADU fair to learn about how to do it, when to do it, and the cheapest way to do it, legally and safely, that is, on Saturday, May 4th from 10 to 12:30 at Grant Union High School. And I will send Jen the link to make sure that y'all can get to it. Other than that, the City of Festivals grant program has reopened. It will be aimed at supporting special events taking place in the city between June 15th and October 31st. We have arranged to have a little extra for District 5. So normally we get 5 applications approved. This year we're getting 7. So if you know anybody who's putting on a festival and having a good time in District 5, we would love for the city to help fund that. And I'll make sure I get the link for info to that. The link for info about that to Jen as soon as possible. And for the sake of time, I think that's my updates. And I'm happy to not only take any questions, but also what's going on in Mangan Park that your city council member needs to know about, and how can we assist y'all?
Questions for Ryan?
It's never been quiet before. Something's wrong.
I know. It's disturbing me just a little bit.
So here's the deal. Unless somebody comes up with a question now, and I expect y'all to, come on. But I will drop my email and phone number in the chat in case anything comes up. As a reminder, I am your liaison to your council office. And so your first point of contact should always be me if there's ever anything you need or that we can assist you with. Mr. Boyd. All right, what do we got?
When you said last chance to ask the council office a question,
I know you'd never miss that, Mr. Boyd.
But good evening to everyone. But a quick question. I with my grandkids at the park, and I came in late to the meeting. A quick question: if I don't know, it may have been asked earlier. Is there any information on what the old Campbell Soup, what is actually being constructed at the old Campbell Soup on 47?
So I have a little bit of info. So here's a fun. That's not Sac City. That's in the county. There's a weird little border carve out around it that means that we don't get any information on it. But by the fact that I'm on the Franklin Boulevard PBID board of directors, I have been able to learn a little bit, which is it's going to be a primarily commercial and mixed use development. I know they're going to try to keep some homages to the Campbell Soup factory itself, but it turns out the Campbell Soup is very, very litigious. And so they can't even put like a mural up with a can on it, or they will get sued. But they are trying to preserve some of the elements from the old factory, but it will be at some point housing and commercial development, considering how close it is to our light rail. But I'm happy to refer you to Supervisor Kennedy's office because they are overseen on the county side. We don't get input on that one.
I appreciate that, Ryan. I wasn't sure about that. I thought Campbell Soup actually made it inside the loop, but I keep forgetting.
I did too.
Counties are ridiculous. But no problem. I appreciate the information. But thank you, and I'll let other folks ask.
My pleasure.
Any other questions for Ryan, or things you want to share? Something that's come up?
Well, I'll be around here for a few more minutes, and I will also drop my contact info in the chat. And failing that, Jen always knows how to get a hold of me. And so you can always reach me or your city government through her. So thank you all so much for your time, as always, and don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And Lieutenant Greg Galliano,
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good to see you. It's been a while.
It's been a while, yes. We've had a few developments here at the police department. So effective the end of this week, I'll be transitioning out of our South Command into another assignment and will be replaced by Lieutenant Zachary Eaton. Very excited for him to join you all. He has a lot of experience here at the police department, former gang enforcement team, former public information office sergeant, watch commander, and he'll be joining as the executive lieutenant. He was going to make it tonight, but he had other obligations, so he couldn't be here, but he will be your liaison and contact here on out. And obviously, I'm still around, so feel free if you ever need anything. I'm more than happy to point you in the right direction or help you out with whatever you need. Crime developments. Great news for Mangan Park. Looking at crime stats for the entirety of this month in our major categories: no theft from vehicles, no cars burglarized, no cars reported being stolen, no burglaries reported. All around great news for the residents of Mangan Park. As we always say, involved communities are safe communities, and you all do a fantastic job of being involved and keeping good eyes on the street and focusing on safety. So keep up the great work. I look forward to seeing what developments come to Mangan Park over the years. Certainly since Jennifer and I met many years ago, 2016, I think, somewhere around on there, before a board was even formed and an association was even formed. You guys have made a lot of great progress. Your problem-oriented policing team is currently attending regular meetings with the airport to discuss different issues they have with regard to trespassers and those type of problems, working with the county. The sheriff's department primarily is responsible for some of the long-term problem solving, where the police department responds to more emergency crimes in progress, but definitely keeping that relationship open so we can ensure all of the neighborhoods surrounding the airport and the airport, those who come and go, are safe and feel safe as they do so. Overall, violent crime has been down throughout the entirety of the city, which we're obviously happy to report. We've been full tilt in our violent crime reduction strategy, which is heavily involved with what's known as PSP, or the Public Safety Partnership Grant, partnering us with federal partners as well as some local partners in really trying to maximize our ability to hold those accountable who are regularly engaging in violent crime in our community, and then preventative strategies through our Office of Violence Prevention, who work with a lot of community-based organizations throughout Sacramento to try and intervene and disrupt violence. And so really good news across those fronts. We really hope to see that continues throughout the year. And that's my big major update. That's what I have to share with you. Your captain, Zach Bales, will be the same, so he'll still be around. Good contact for you all. A couple lieutenant shifts here at the station, but really most notably Lieutenant Zach Eaton as your new contact. Certainly happy to answer any questions before the assemblyman gives a speech or takes over.
Eric.
Hi, hi, Greg. I guess my question would be sort of for the north end of South Sacramento. So I don't know, Mangan Park to Sac City College. What are the 2 or 3 most regularly reported crimes? I know that's kind of a broad area.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can give you some property crime information. The most regular property, regularly reported, or the issues we're asked about the most, maybe the most concerning property crimes, because I don't have the data on hand now to tell you what, of course, is most reported, but I can tell you what I get asked about the most: burglaries from vehicles, theft, cars being stolen, and theft of mail. Probably the 3 that I get asked about the most. Theft from vehicles overall isn't looking too bad in that area you're describing, nor is theft of vehicles. Theft of mail, I really can't give you much of an opinion or description on because most of that is turned over to the U.S. Postal Service. They are the lead investigator for theft of mail. Your police department will respond if someone is actively stealing mail. We'll attempt to detain a person and liaison with federal partners to see what type of prosecution can happen, or even make an arrest or a citation if the person is in possession of stolen mail. So when it comes to theft from mail, we really point folks towards the postal inspector for what can be done or what's being done on that front. But we heavily recommend crime prevention through environmental design. It's the best mitigating factor for that one. But it's a very regularly asked about crime between those three.
Is theft of mail, does that include porch theft of, delivered packages?
Yeah, so technically two different things. Where theft of mail is anytime that mailbox is breached, right? Your mailbox, whether it's a cluster mailbox, whether it's the one you put in front of your house, is property of the United States Postal Service versus a parcel that's placed on your front property. Now, we do get concerns about that, the parcel theft from time to time, much less so, I think, than the other crimes. And for those, we do have what's known as a bait program, where if you've been the victim of theft of a parcel being stolen from your property, our POP team will put bait packages on your property, and there's a waiver and a notice that's signed. But it's electronically monitored, electronically tracked. So the second it's picked up, the second it's moved, we know about it, we track it, and we can hopefully apprehend the person usually responsible for multiple forms of these thefts once we make that apprehension.
Oh, can I just throw out there that in our neighborhood, somebody last year from our association participated in that. And I think the bait package was stolen the second day. And they found somebody, and the guy they caught, he had a car full of stuff.
It's a great program. Yeah, it's a great program. We're working through a couple logistic challenges right now. It is up and running. We don't have as much of the program and technology up and running, but as you can imagine, right, technologies breaks down easily, especially this type of technology where it can be easily damaged and destroyed, and it's expensive to replace. But yep, the program's fantastic, and if anybody is ever interested, myself or I can connect you with Lieutenant Eaton and our POP team, we're more than happy to deploy bait at folks' houses, especially if you've been the victim more than once, because then there's a chance that something about your property or the way it's set up, or maybe a location, or we don't really always know until we make an apprehension or an arrest. There's a chance it may happen again, and so we're always happy to help folks out with that.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions for Lieutenant Greg? All right, well, I have one last question. Where are you going? I haven't heard that part yet.
I will be transitioning over to our fiscal division and our Office of Violence Prevention.
All right.
Numbers.
Well, I knew we wouldn't get to keep you for very long. We never get to keep our great lieutenants for very long. So you will be missed. It's been great working with you for the last year or so. And I wish you all the best where you're headed off to. Good to know you're going to stay as close to Mangan Park as you are. If you haven't already heard the story, the Mangan Park Neighborhood Association exists because of Lieutenant Greg Galliano. And we were having a lot of problems. And I went to a Southland Park Community Association meeting because Southland Park was reporting the same problems. And then POP Officer Greg Galliano was leading part of the team, and I talked to him afterwards and said, you were talking about SEPTED. You want to see a SEPTED problem? I could show you a SEPTED problem. And SEPTED is environmental design to reduce crime. And the southern border of Mangan Park is one great big SEPTED problem, massive. And so I opened up that conversation with then Officer Greg Galliano, and he did a whiz-bang job and got us a lot of support and help. And at the end of it all, kind of he and a few other people looked at me and said, but you really want to do something, you have to start an association. And so here we are, years later, we started the association. We've learned a lot about SEPTED. We've learned a lot about Neighborhood Watch. We've learned a lot about community building and bringing people together. And you know, Lieutenant Greg, hats off to you. You've been a rock for me many, many times. So thank you for all of them. And I won't be shocked if you come back as the Mangan Park captain someday.
That's very kind of you, Jennifer. And you and the very dedicated residents of Mangan Park have done all of the heavy lifting. Really have made some phenomenal progress. It is a small but mighty neighborhood, and so I really, as a resident of the city, I look forward to seeing what you do with it. So I can come and shamelessly make use of your amenities in the future.
Please do, and we will soon hear how amenities are soon going to be expanding. So we will have more to offer in the next couple of years. We're on it. It's going to happen.
Awesome. Well, best of luck, and we'll be here cheering you on.
Thank you so much. So God bless and keep you, Lieutenant Greg.
Thank you.
And next agenda item, Erica, is Assemblymember McCarty somewhere nearby?
He is on his way, so he should be on shortly. Maybe we can move to the next item and then get back to him once he hops on.
You know, Pete Spaulding has a 10-minute section that's supposed to be shortly after Assemblymember McCarty, so it's about 10, maybe 15 minutes. Does that sound about right?
It's hard to say because he could hop on at any moment. He should be on shortly. It is on his calendar for 6:30. So perhaps we can give him a couple minutes.
Well, how about this then, that we go ahead and we start his agenda item. Pete, are you okay with that? And we see how far we get. When Assemblymember McCarty comes in, we go with Assemblymember McCarty.
Sure, you bet, Jennifer. I can do that. Although the pressure's on because Eric said how you guys get good topics and get good speakers. So now I better perform well, or otherwise I'm never going to get invited back again. So
just to let you know, Mangan Park meetings are always open to anyone in the county. We really do roll open here, even if our topics are mostly about Mangan Park. But you have news for us of other concerns. Please do share with us where you're based and what you're working on.
Okay, and can you share that PowerPoint presentation that I sent over to you? Are you able to do that?
Absolutely. Let me go grab that.
Okay, well, you're doing that. What I'll tell people is I live in the Larchmont La Riviera area. So we're about 1.5 miles east of the Watt Avenue Bridge on the south side of the river. And if any of you have driven over the H Street Bridge in the last 2 years and looked to the right or looked to the left, you've probably noticed a big difference in how the riverbank looks. It's no longer the lush riparian forest that has been there for years and years. It now looks like a war zone with basically naked banks, a lot of riprap along the bank of the river, and not nearly as attractive, not representative of the wild and scenic designation that the American River Parkway has. So what I am a part of a neighborhood association, an HOA association, but right now we're just a group of neighbors that have united to challenge the Army Corps of Engineers on upcoming erosion control contracts that are known as 3B and 4B. And Jennifer, are you able to find that PowerPoint?
I have it, and I am coming in here. It's giving me interesting Zoom stuff. Hang on, let me
Okay, the only reason I brought it up is because I've got some websites that are on there, and we can always come back to that at the end.
Here it
Okay,
is.
there we go. Okay, and if we can go down to the second slide there. Okay, right. This is where I was starting to say, we're a bunch of neighbors. We're challenging the Army Corps of Engineers on upcoming erosion control contracts. And you can find information about us at the website there, AmericanRiverTrees.org. And you can find a lot of information about the Sacramento levee upgrades projects on the Army Corps of Engineers website, which is sacleveeupgrades.com. So if you could go to the next one. Okay, so we all learned about this around November of 2023. Let me, I know we only got a small group of people on here. How many people are familiar with the erosion control projects that are being planned? Not for the ones that they've already completed, but the ones that are being planned in the next couple of years. Is there a way we can look and do a show of hands or anything like that?
I have to end this.
Don't worry about it. That's okay.
All right.
Well, we just learned about this in November 2023 when we all got a little 3x5 postcard in the mail that said, hey, there's this draft environmental impact report. Comments are due by February 5th. And then we started delving into it. We kind of put 2 and 2 together, got this little card, looked at all the work that had been was being done around Sac State, and started looking into the draft environmental impact report. It was over 800 pages. And it was scheduled to come out on December 22nd. It came out on December 15th. And we had 45 days to comment on it. Well, the first thing that we did was to ask for more time to comment on it because it was pretty darn hard to go through 800 pages and then another 800 pages of appendices to try to understand what was going on. The Army Corps did have 2 Zoom meetings on January 10th and 16th. There were about over 200, well, almost 200 people attended each of those meetings. And by the time we were successful in getting the deadline for the comment period extended, and it went out another 18 days to February 23rd, over 900 comments were submitted by individuals, public agencies, non-government organizations. You go to the next one, Jennifer. Since then, after the comment period ended, we've continued to try to get questions with, or try to get meetings, one-on-one meetings with the Army Corps and the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. On April 8th, Congressman Ami Bera, working with County Supervisors Pat Hume and Rich Desmond, had what was advertised as a community conversation, and almost 300 people participated in that. The conversation, one would think a conversation is a two-way dialogue. Well, this wasn't much of a dialogue. It was a presentation by the Army Corps. We had the ability to ask questions in advance. Most of those questions were never brought up and not answered. And even the moderator admitted that he had trouble keeping up with the questions that were being asked. Jennifer, go to the next one. And, you know, our concerns really grew out of what we saw happening in the Campus Commons, Sac State, Paradise Beach areas. This is a photo that was taken in February after we had the heavy rains. Now, this isn't putting anybody at risk. This is high up on the levee, just west of the Howe Avenue Bridge. That's the Howe Avenue Bridge in the background. I'm about a quarter mile west of that. So this was just, but this was, here's a completed, not necessarily a completed project because they were still going to put plantings in here. But this is what just the rain did to the levee work that they were doing on that section of the river. So when you see something like that, it really grabs your attention. Go ahead, Jennifer. Because a lot of the erosion control methods that they were proposing for our area of the river were very similar to the ones that they used down in Sac State. Now this, I kind of apologize for this slide. I stole it off an Army Corps of Engineers presentation. So this is a snapshot, a screenshot that I was able to take. But this shows some of the erosion protection measures that they plan to, that they've already completed in the Campus Commons Sac State area and what they're planning to do in the area east of Howe Avenue all the way up to the Mayu Drain, which is about 1.5 miles east of the Watt Avenue Bridge. Now, the picture on the far left, that shows the typical riprap gets placed along the toe of the levee. That's kind of that orange shading on the far left of that far left diagram. The top right, that shows a planting bench with what they call a launchable rock toe. And if you look down under the blue, which represents the river, and you see that orange rock, all that has to be excavated so they can put the rock in there and then put the fill back in behind it. And if you see where those trees are, that's referred to as a planting bench. And the way this thing works is if erosion occurs, the soil behind the orange rock falls into the river, then all those trees that it shows there, that falls down into that little area by the black line. So the whole thing kind of collapses. And that's great. It prevents erosion, but then you're losing all the trees that were put there as part of the revegetation effort. And then the bottom right, that shows something called a buried launchable rock trench. Again, in order to get that rock down there in the orange, you've got to excavate everything that's on top of it. And then you've got to put all that rock in there. So these are some of the erosion methods that they're proposing in our section of the river. If you could go to the next one, and actually, yeah, that one and this one we're going to skip because this is kind of the, although the one point I'll point out on this is that in order to do these types of erosion control measures, they remove all the existing vegetation, which includes grasses, brushes, trees, and over 500 trees. And many of the trees that they're removing are heritage oaks. And heritage oaks are protected. They're not supposed to be taken down if they are of a certain diameter measured, certain circumference measured 4 feet above the ground. If you or I wanted to remove one of those trees off of our property, we'd have to get a permit. But the Army Corps is coming in and they're wiping out hundreds of these. Next slide, please. So, we know the Corps has done a great job. Most of us with American River trees all live within a quarter mile of the river. Nobody wants flood protection and erosion control more than we do. But, and the Corps' done some great projects here. The Sacramento Weir is a perfect example. We all see that every time we drive over Interstate 80 in the winter and we see Lake Davis underneath Interstate 80. Years ago, they put in slurry walls in the levees to prevent seepage and prevent boils, keep us safe. They've raised the height of the levees in some of the areas. Even in this area, they did it by an area known as the Mayu Drain. They've just recently added a new spillway and lowered that spillway so they can release water quicker out of Folsom Lake. And they're near the completion of increasing the height of Folsom Dam by another 3.5 feet. Go ahead, Jennifer. So, there's been a lot of success. We all depend on the Corps, depend on SAFGA, the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, to keep us safe. But we have a lot of concerns. Throughout this whole process, there's been stakeholder involvement, but there's no community involvement. And community involvement, I mean neighborhood associations, folks like yourselves, basically no neighborhood involvement. As we delved into the environmental impact reports, we could not find the soil data that they were using to evaluate the erosion risk. For our new contracts that are coming up, they're using data, as far as we can tell, that was taken down by Paradise Beach and Campus Commons. And our soil conditions here along the river are totally different from that. They're using old models to estimate the river velocities. They're using models that don't take into account vegetation. And they're using models that were developed in the late 90s. There's been models that were developed in around 2018, 2019 that take into account vegetation. And those models show that as the water is near the sides of the riverbank and near the levees, it slows down because of the vegetation, and slowing down the water slows down erosion. The erosion controls alternatives that were considered, they really haven't looked at anything other than what they've shown us in the diagrams. At least they haven't told us what other alternatives were considered. The treatments and replantings that will be used at completion of the contracts, they really aren't showing us a good after diagram. If you were doing a commercial development in the city or the county, you've got to come in with drawings. You got to show people, you got to show the elected officials what it's going to look like. You got to show the planning people. They're not showing us any of that. We're really concerned about the loss of riverbank recreation access, the salmon spawning habitat, and other negative impacts on wildlife. And overall, there's just a lot of negative impacts on the American River Parkway and the American River, which is the only federally and state designated wild and scenic river within a metropolitan area in the entire country. Okay, next slide. How am I doing on time, Jennifer? I'm doing my best.
You're doing pretty good. You are at 10 minutes right now. Is Assemblymember McCarty in the room?
Yes.
Okay, let me get to the next slide and I'll finish up and I'll be all done. And if I can just go one more slide.
Assemblymember McCarty, is that okay? No
Yeah,
more than
no,
2
I'm
minutes?
totally fine. Yeah, I'm learning a lot too, so I'm listening. Go ahead.
All right, excellent. Here we go. Next slide. Our hopes.
Okay, so this is what we're hoping for. As I said, we all live right next to the river. Nobody wants erosion control and flood control more than we do. But we really are trying to get a reevaluation, a redesign of the erosion control methods that the Corps wants to use, and change that before they finalize their contracts in 3B and 4B. We want to see data-driven, evidence-based protection. When they evaluated the risk for flood in this area, a lot of it was opinion-based. They had a number of experts walk the river and say what they think was more at risk than others. We want something better than that. We want a data-driven, evidence-based. We want a targeted erosion analysis. We want them to use the latest models. We want them to use what's known as nature-based controls and construction methods that do less damage to the environment. We want to maintain the wild and scenic character of the American River Parkway. We want to have a project that generations will be proud of, not one that's going to take generations from which to recover. So last slide. Thanks for listening to me. If you have any questions, some questions can be answered on our website, which is www.americanrivertrees.com. You can also email us at americanrivertreesupdates@gmail.com. One thing I forgot, that we had two coverage in the Sacramento Bee on April 21st, the Earth Day edition of the forum. The lead story was about how taming the American River strips it of its beauty. And in this month's Inside Sacramento papers that are all around the area, there's an article entitled "A Better Way: Community Calls on Army Corps to Rethink Flood Control." So hopefully you can pick up that Inside Sacramento. And again, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Jennifer, I can stay on till the end, till after Assemblyman McCarty speaks. I'm happy to stay to the end and answer any questions that anybody might have.
That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. I'm going to end the screen share and bring us all back together. And I'm going to welcome Assemblymember Kevin McCarty of California Assembly District 6, Mangan Park's representative in the Assembly, and actually the representative for most parts of Sacramento as well. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you. I thought I was going to go in person, so I'm on Zoom. So I came home, took off my suit and tie, and put on a T-shirt. So I hope you guys are all right, me being casual. So
that is just fine. You look very comfortable, and we want people to be comfortable while we talk about this stuff.
Okay, so how much time do we have here? So that kind of helps me figure out.
You actually get as much time as you want tonight.
Okay,
just to let you know.
I don't know about that, but maybe I'll try to talk for 5 or so minutes on some of the important stuff that I'm working on, and then turn it over to you, and you can engage me with questions. So first of all, since I saw you last, a couple things have happened. One, I have a really new and cool, exciting committee assignment that I'm working on at the Capitol. I want to talk about related to public safety. And ironically, last time I talked to you, you were asking me about public safety issues, and now I have a new assignment. But also, all politics being local, we were out there a few weeks ago and delivered a check from the state budget process for, I forget the dollar amount, but nearly $300,000, maybe it was $300,000, that I was able to coordinate with your outstanding council member, Caity Maple, and look for projects to support different neighborhoods. And we were able to focus on Mangan Park. So we have some improvements coming along to the park, which I'm excited about. And thank you for being engaged. And there's some neighborhoods that don't step it up, have regular board meetings, and talk to people about all levels of government. And you could tell it impacts their viability. So having an active neighborhood association is important. And I know that your board members and you, the president, don't do this for fame nor fortune. You do this because you care. So that being said, one of the big assignments that I'm working on in my final year in the legislature, our Speaker of the Assembly, which is the guy that leads the entire state assembly, he divvies up assignments and roles for legislators to work on. He asked me if I was willing to chair the Public Safety Committee overseeing public safety laws and changes in California. Yeah, that's a super political hotbed issue always. It's very, very hot now in 2023 and 24. And he asked me if I would take it. He says, look, I know it's a big topic, but I know you've done important work over the last 9 years, and I think you can handle it. And he says, I know you're going to say no. And I'm like, well, why are you asking me? And I said, because I know people don't want to do it. But I said I would do it under one condition, and that was I wanted to think things differently and do things differently as far as public safety, because I do think that the public wants us to do things a little bit differently, bring a little bit more balance and common sense into our criminal justice laws. And I think that we've done a lot of stuff we can be proud of in California in the last 20 years on criminal justice issues. And we used to have laws where people went to prison for 3 strikes for stealing a piece of pizza. And that didn't really make sense. And, you can support the redemption and helping people succeed after they serve their sentences. I think of the redemption side and like the Shawshank Redemption type thing. But the flip side is I think that we've somewhat lost our way a bit with holding people accountable for crimes on the front end, especially things like retail theft and drug abuse that you see on some of our neighborhoods. And, some of those issues are related to the homeless population. We know not all of them, but we see that there are, repeat offenders who aren't necessarily being held accountable. So that's one of the top issues that I'm working on right now is what can we do to change our laws as far as repeat offenders for retail theft. You may have heard there's this ballot measure that the District Attorney Tienho and others are submitting for the ballot that would do just that. So the legislature is working concurrently, and regardless, there will be a measure placed on the ballot to basically hold repeat offenders accountable. And what does that mean, accountable? That could mean time in county jail. Hopefully, if they're committing their crimes to feed their addiction, it could be, these things called collaborative courts where you have diversion, where you divert people to go and do drug treatment and serve out their sentence as well, and really focus on the underlying issues. As far as addiction as well, and especially related to fentanyl, that's one thing that we're really want to bring back is the treatment side and having to get treatment as far as your sentence. We used to have mandatory, with these drug courts that people had to go treatment, and now, it's voluntary and people aren't choosing. We see it sometimes, unfortunately, in our neighborhood, people get arrested over and over, and there's no basically hammered to hold somebody accountable as far as incarceration. So there's no incentive for them to go get drug treatment. So, that's a piece of the puzzle that we're looking to address too. So I have legislation on both of these fronts. And then lastly, one of the issues I'm working on with our police chief and DA I'm excited about is kind of looking for new ways to tackle gun violence. Unfortunately, too many of the incidents of gun violence are with young people and young offenders. Unfortunately, the people that you see in gun violence a lot of times are domestic disputes and domestic issues or young people. And, the DA and our police chief came up with this idea, and they asked me if I would, find some money in the state budget or write legislation to do this. And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. Essentially, some of this, the people, the offenders, or the individuals who get caught early on, they're on this path to basically really negative outcomes with firearms when they have their first encounter with a firearm. Not, let's say that they're a shooter, they shoot at somebody, because they would go to prison or what have you. But like if they get caught with a firearm in their backpack or their bike or their car at school, what have you, sometimes they just get a sentence and they just hopefully things work out. the idea that the police chief came to me with is, what if we have like mandatory gun violence intervention with these young people? They have to do a intensive, like, engagement with these programs that work with offenders and talk about the consequences, like you do if you ever get a DUI arrest. You have to go to DUI school. So this would be like a gun violence intervention classes taught by people who serve time in prison and can tell the impacts of firearm violence. And so kind of like, not necessarily scared straight, but like really involve the young people. And there's some models that have worked. Our DA really likes these. And so we're doing a bill that would mandate this in Sacramento County to try it as a pilot to see if we can, reduce incidents of gun violence, especially with our younger population. So that's just some of the public safety issues. There's one cool issue I want to talk about before I open up to Q&A. One of my fun bills I'm really excited about this year is related to financial literacy for high school students. My bill would have a requirement as far as a high school graduation. You shall have to take a financial literacy course. And it's so important for young people these days. They go off to college, and before they find the bookstore, they can get credit cards thrown in their face and sign up for a credit card. And high school kids today, more than half don't know the difference between a credit card and a debit card. And now these young people are buying their goods today. They're buy now and pay later. When they end up missing a payment, having their interest rates triple, they end up paying $400 for a $100 pair of Air Jordans sometimes. And so this year are important life skills, whether it's, student debt, buying a house, saving, retirement, teaching young people about financial literacy, will help them with their math, but also help them with life. So that's a cool bill that I'm working on that's moving through the process this year that I think will become law. So I'll stop there. And like I always, ask you if you want to ask me any question about my job as your assembly member and what's going on at our state capitol.
And before I open it up on the floor, I want to ask a question about what you just shared with us.
Yes.
Is there any legislation you would like your constituents' support for? These are things you're passionate about, and that's great. But is there anything that you might need a little extra assistance in, and we could help you with?
Yeah, but can I just think about that and get back to you and have Erica, my district director, follow up? I want to be strategic about this. So yes.
Got it. So before I take hands, I wanted to make certain that I frame the open questions carefully.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Such as, this is not a campaign event. This is not a mayoral forum. This is about the work that Assemblymember Kevin McCarty is doing for his constituents in the state legislature. Please keep your questions on that topic. Also, one rule I'm going to institute that I normally don't institute in a Mangan Park meeting is that when you raise your hand, you have to be present in your camera. You must ask your question on camera so that we know who's asked it. So that's a little bit, since the link to this got put on our Facebook page, I want to make certain that there is integrity in this meeting. And this is one way that I am requiring that. So Kristina, I see your hand is up, and I know you, but could you please come on camera for a second and show us your lovely face as you ask your question?
Hi.
Hi, Kristina.
Hi. Hi, Assemblymember McCarty. Okay, so this is my question. It's regarding Proposition 47. As you know, over 900,000 California citizens signed this Fix Prop 47 petition, and DAs and law enforcement support it, and even Democratic leaders like London Breed in San Francisco support it. So I'm wondering what you're crafting when you're talking about crafting legislation, and are you concerned that this will confuse voters again like it did in 2014?
No, I support a measure going to the ballot. When I say legislation, it's a ballot measure. So the DAs have a choice. They can go forward with their ballot measure, which will qualify, as you noted. They need 575,000. They turn in 900,000. I'm 95% certain it will qualify the next few weeks. They have a choice, and their choice is they can proceed with that, or they can work with the legislature, with me and the governor and others to kind of craft a compromise, which I think is the better approach always in life, you know, working things out together. And so there are a couple things in their measure that, yeah, that maybe we could tweak that out that go a little too far. But overall, it's not to have a double measure on there. There will only be one measure on the ballot. So, but it's the DA's choice. And because if they work it out, then there won't have to be a campaign, a fight, a big ballot back and forth, raising money. So having all things being, you know, said in life, having a mitigated compromise where everybody comes together and works it out, that's, I think, the optimal path. I, as the chair of the committee, I'm like the referee. So I'm trying to bring sides together and come up with a solution. But I am in accord with the DAs that this must be done through the ballot. The legislature can work to put something on the ballot. But for example, a lot of the retail theft you hear about smash and grab, and like, you know, the liquor stores where people are just stealing little stuff. So the smash and grabs are Target, Walmart, the big boxes. You can change laws to hold people accountable to help those big box stores, kind of like the Wall Street companies. But I'm really concerned about the Main Street stores, you know, the little grocery store on Freeport.
They're getting killed.
Little guys.
Yes.
Those guys are getting hurt by death by 1,000 cuts. And the only way to change laws about that is focusing on the repeat offense. It's called a petty theft with a prior. So on your second, third, or fourth offense, it would be a felony for your theft. And you may ask me, like, what's the problem with the DA's initiative? Why would you want to do anything differently? Let me give you two examples as why I think it's potentially a slight overreach. Their idea says if you're caught 3 times over your life for petty theft, it's a felony. Well, I'm 52 years old. What happens if I was 20 and 21 and 93 and 95 and I did some stupid stuff and stole some stuff from the Rayleighs? And then I have my third one now in 2025. You know, is 3 and then over a 30-year period really? Or should it be 3 over like
do you think that's the norm though? Do you think that's the norm?
The DAs, but let me just hear me out real quick. And the DAs tell me, yeah, that's a good point. We really want to focus on the repeat people that are going in over and over. And so that's a good point. And then also too, if another like a minor potential tweak is that if somebody does get a felony arrest for going and stealing something from a store, should the accountability be state prison or county jail? I think a flash incarceration is a warning to the person. So whether it's county jail or state prison, I think it's equal. State prison is like, you know, $150,000 a year per inmate. May not be the best use of our taxpayer dollars. Maybe county jail is a better place. And so there's like things that we're working at. Those are two like simple examples that if the TNHO was right here, he'd probably say, yeah, Kevin, you're probably right. You know, there's some wiggle room in adjusting those two things. So that's kind of like the in between how the sausage gets made in the legislature. But the big picture is the DAs get to control. The legislature, me, the Capitol folks, we can't take the measure off the ballot. If they want to go forward with the measure they have, they can. If they think they can craft a compromise with the legislature, then they'll do that. But that's how the process works, with people working together. I think that's always a better approach. And there will be a conclusion on this question by the end of June. So by the end of June is the date where that's the last date they could pull their measure off the ballot. So by the end of June, we'll know one way or the other which measure will go to the voters.
Thank you.
Good question, Kristina.
Thank you.
So I've been working to get Barry Boyd brought back into the meeting. Oh, there you are, Barry. Do you have a question?
Sorry, Jennifer. No, I'm good. Little technical difficulties here.
Okay, I just didn't want the technical difficulty to get in the way. Any other questions for Assemblymember McCarty on current legislation?
Do you mind if I ask? I know I saw Assemblyman McCarty at the victims event yesterday.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was just wondering what you thought about the event, the people that you met, and some of the stories they had to tell.
Yeah, it was very powerful. I met the family for Michelle Benavides, who was murdered down there by the light rail station on Florin a couple years ago. And I helped the family pay for a mural down there about her and other victims. And just, hearing the stories was very profound, and hearing from these families, they're brought together by circumstance. They don't want to be part of that, but they wanted to find a way to have a purpose, and maybe hopefully their loved one didn't die in vain. And whether it's support, coming together, understanding the criminal justice process, advocating for laws. I will tell you that I've been just shook all day. I'm not sure if you saw this, Kristina, but one of the women that spoke, she talked about her daughter Rebecca, and she mentioned my name, and I was like, why? I didn't understand why she said my name. But I've been coaching little baseball league called the Junior Giants for 20 years. This is my 20th year down at Georgetown Park, and this girl Rebecca was on my team in 2008. She was a 6-year-old, and she was murdered on these apartments in College Greens off Folsom Boulevard in 2021, and I had no idea. And the mom came up and shared that with me and showed me the picture, and I remembered the girl's face right away. And it just shook me the last 24 hours. And so that really, I was supportive of everybody there by their stories, and I had no idea that I'd have one with a personal connection to me. So, one thing I said is that, criminal justice laws are about, of course, holding the wrongdoers accountable. But they're the flip side about when people do serve their time, to have them go out and hopefully they succeed and not reoffend and reintegrate back into society, which I think is key too. We all want that, but it's also helping survivors and the families navigate the process too. So that was, powerful to hear those stories.
I have a question, but I'll leave the floor open for just a moment. Anybody else have a question before I ask mine? Gosh, it's a quiet room tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So looking over current legislation, one caught my eye, AB 2744, Intersection Safety Act, to create transit-friendly communities for cyclists and pedestrians. Now then,
I like that bill, but unfortunately, it got torpedoed by the policy committee. The idea for that one is sometimes when you're about to cross a crosswalk, I tell my kids too, you want to wait a second and see if people are running that light. This idea would have had that the mandate that the lights would have to stay, don't turn green on all directions for an extra second or two, so people can make sure the intersection's clear before they get on their bike and start walking across. So I still think it's a righteous issue. Apparently the city of Sacramento is looking at an idea, and maybe someday the next person helping the city of Sacramento can work on that too, but we'll see about that. So
okay. Let me have a quick think here, because there was that hanging question also about how can your constituents support you in some of your current work. Mangan Park has a state portal.
Let me go back and look at the bill list with Erica, and I'll see which ones are kind of cruise control and which ones need some help. There is one I'll bring up that your council member Maple is really behind, and she was my witness for it. Homelessness is our issue of the day. I'm a big believer. We all need to work on this together, as we are all in this together. We need to have the city and the county and the state and the federal government all working on these issues together. And too often, we always think it's the other person's problem. In Sacramento, the city has been the dumping ground for homeless for decades. Some of the neighboring jurisdictions policy used to be a taxi cab at 2 a.m. and drop them off people at Loaves and Fishes, right? So the more we can do working together, and having local governments work together is key. And we have these joint powers authorities where the Board of Supervisors and the council meet and work on these, on like probably about a dozen or so topics, from cable TV to wastewater to regional transportation to air quality, the public health issues. But we don't have one where they come together and work on the most important issue facing us right now, that's homelessness. And so this would create a body, kind of, have the city of Sacramento, the cities of Elk Grove and Rancho Cordova and the county of Sacramento have their elected officials all on one entity to better coordinate. And last year, a grand jury came out with a just a brutal indictment of the response for homelessness, and this is one of their top recommendations. There's not enough coordination among governments working on these issues, and so I know the state is saying in the future, they want to give money to cities that are working together with their county and other jurisdictions. So this bill would create that in here in Sacramento. So that's one I think I would like your support, and I know it's Maple's top priority too.
Is that AB 2593?
I have no idea, but if you say so. You looking at the
Creates a
sheet.
partnership on homelessness with Sacramento County and 7 cities within the county to
Yes.
combat the homelessness crisis.
Yes, that's
All
the
right.
one.
I'm circling that one so we know that that's one to go in and read a little deeper. If you don't already know, I actually do read legislation beginning to end.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not kind of crazy neighborhood association leader.
Yes.
So the question for what can we support you on? Mangan Park has a state portal. It has backing. It's not just kind words. We actually do communicate with the legislature with letters based upon reading and a little research and evidence. Okay, let me that I'm kind of understanding a little bit more because as I was reading over your March newsletter and your current legislation, I did notice some changes in the sorts of things that you were covering. And I think you've answered some of those reasons why. That there's been a shift in the types of bills that you're writing from 2023 to 2024. Now we're really good with your education stuff.
Yeah, I probably have more public safety bills. That's the committee that I chair. I have some education, some measures, but just this is my final year, so I was trying to tie some loose ends that I'm not able to address going forward. But try to make sure I'm well-rounded on what the issues of our district are as well.
Right there with you. And just to kind of fill in a little bit, thinking about AB 2593, there are amongst area neighborhood associations conversations about how it's very hard to access transparent information about homeless statistics between the city and the county. And you can see Kristina nodding here. And some of the people who are off camera are nodding with us that when we go and try to access real information in the city-county partnership, it's been very hard for us to get the information that we're looking for. They've got their board that's filled with their stats, and we're welcome to what they want us to know. But when we try to ask questions about things they haven't told us, that really doesn't come up. And also, as it's managed by a nonprofit, their meetings are not subject to the Brown Act. So the meetings don't have to be recorded. They don't have to follow certain note taking. There's a lot of problems on our end, just to let you know, when we try to work. So I'm very happy to hear about 2593. But one of the things that I will be looking at and discussing with other leaders as I review 2593 more is how it will make the transparency between homelessness efforts and residents improve. That's something we're going to be looking for in any legislation that happens. Because even now with the help of other neighborhood associations, we just submitted a letter on the city budget reductions. And one of the things that we needed was transparency in the budget reduction process for not just city departments, but also for nonprofits that the city is funding. Whenever it comes up against nonprofits, we get nothing. We don't know what the heck is going on. But a lot of city money is going to those, and I think a lot of the county money is going to those, and it's nonprofits we're having a hard time getting the information from. So, that's it, as this is something you're passionate about and asking for support on. Yes, we want the homeless to get more resources. We want care. We want for them to be given pathways out of homelessness and back into a satisfying life. But this is something that is pretty much across the city, whether or not they've signed our most recent letter or not. People are looking for this. So that's our little feedback for you on what we're seeing from the ground, and how we are working together and hoping to have your support as well.
Yeah, I concur. And one of the top things here about this, our idea here, is it would be a public meeting. There would be minutes and agendas and focused on what's happening with these entities, and not just the nonprofit who's kind of behind the scenes. So it would make this all much more transparent. And the city just did an audit, so did the state, and it's kind of damning. And one of the things that the conclusion is, it's not always about money. And one of the things that you may have heard me talk about in my other life, but it's legislatively, I'll say it here, is 2 years ago, we had a debate here earlier. I forget the speaker's name, was talking about the Parkway. And I love the American River Parkway. It's the jewel of Sacramento. I know it's not as close to you guys there in Mangan Park as where I'm at in Elmhurst by the Med Center, but it's still not too far from you. And it's 8 million people a year go visit our Parkway. And one of the things that's causing problems down there is homelessness. And 2 years ago in the state budget, I worked with the county supervisors, and I got an earmark to get homeless off the river by building a facility. And the county wanted $10 million to help build a facility. And I actually said, you know what, I'm gonna get you 25 million. It was like a once in a generation state budget, and I was able to get a massive appropriation, which never happens. So that the county's had that money now almost 2 years, and they haven't spent one penny, not one penny. So it's not always about money. It's about priorities and projects and finding cost-effective solutions. And I think too often governments, they look for the perfect solution as opposed to the good one. They let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so that's where I think more transparency on what's being spent, what projects are, where the money is going, what the outcomes are, allows policymakers to be like, hey, let's focus here what works. And also, more importantly, allows the public like you to be like, hey, let's not mess around. Let's focus on the programs over here would actually make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's stuff going in my head, but I probably should save it for Supervisor Patrick Kennedy at the county level, to tell you the truth.
Okay, is he here tonight too?
Unfortunately, no. He was invited, so was Rachel Magavero.
Okay.
But unfortunately, no, they are not in the room. Well, I'll make it as fast an aside as I could. Working with some people in the city, I did my best to get some closed invitation list tours inside some local homeless facilities to try to understand how services are being delivered, and also to try to destigmatize homeless resource facilities, because the neighborhoods are always fighting them and saying no, 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 not here, not here.
Yep.
Well, okay, well, let's go in and look at them, and maybe if we destigmatize them, people won't be so against them. So we reached out to some of the local homeless facilities, and at the managerial level, the managers were right there with us, like, yeah, let's do this. Some closed list. I was reaching out to some faith-based organizations, a couple of very trustworthy neighborhood community leaders, people who would be respectful. Everybody was like, yeah, let's do this. And when county level managers went to get final permission from the county oversight management, the word came back, no, that would be a violation of homelessness, and there will be no tours. And which is a big pop in the balloon. Now that I'm doubling back, I'm going to try to work through that. I'm certain that we can negotiate our way through that. I think it's something really important to do so that we can organize more support. But I've gotten stonewalled right here, and I do need to talk to Supervisor Kennedy about that and see what kind of support we can get. If there's any support you can offer to us, we would be very appreciative. Because it was never supposed to be a free-for-all and we just let the public run through the facility. It was supposed to be a curated list of about 10 people who would show up at the right time, walk where we are chaperoned to, and, have a chance to sit and discuss and take a chaperoned walk back on out without us, poking our noses into people's private lives that, we're not trying to do.
Understood.
So that is my aside. I will get in and read some of this a little bit more and get back with Erica on that.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on how we can think we can be helpful. So, and thank you for inviting me. And I always enjoy the questions. And yeah, I look forward to coming out there when we start making those improvements of the park as well. And by the way, my kids are starting to be lifeguards. They're taking lifeguard classes this weekend through the city, and they chose 3 pools. So we chose Clooney Pool, the Tahoe Park Pool, and your pool. So they could be out there as a lifeguard this summer in Mangan Park. So stand by.
We would love to, and I get to know my lifeguards, and I take care of my lifeguards. So know that your kids would have a neighborhood association auntie who would
nice.
take care of them and make certain that the work is good and that the pool is operating so they can do their job.
Yeah, well, their friend they're doing it with lives just across the street from you all in Hollywood Park, like almost to the border of you. So it's right by their house. That's why we chose this pool.
Well, Julie Johnson, who's also in the meeting, is on the board of Hollywood Park Neighborhood Association.
Okay.
So
good.
It's packaged. It's a done deal.
Okay. All righty. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you all soon.
Until then, thank you very much. We are very grateful for your time and responses this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Pete, I think I promised you a quick wrap up, and then we will talk to Rhonda and Sarah, who have joined us about the AB 617 boundaries. Sorry, the agenda got a little wobbly, Sarah and Rhonda, since you joined us later. Assemblymember McCarty was about 10 minutes, 15 minutes behind schedule, so we brought Pete in, and now everything's sliding back about 15 minutes-ish. So, please bear with us. We're almost done, and we'll take any questions for Pete about the American River Trees project that he's working on, and then we'll be ready for AB 617 stuff. So Pete, hi, thanks for coming back.
That's okay. I moved to the outside because it's time to feed the dog. So if you hear some barking in the background, that's what's going on. But no, I got through all the slides. I did put in the chat the email address for American River Trees, as well as our website. I just would want to say it is, even though you guys aren't next to the American River Parkway, it was mentioned, the assembly member mentioned it. It's the crown jewel of Sacramento. And once you can see what it looks like from H Street, we don't want any more of the parkway being left in that condition. It's the crown jewel of Sacramento. It gets more visitors a year than Yosemite. It's an economic driver for the region. It's a spawning ground for salmon and steelhead. We just don't want to lose that. We want erosion. We want flood protection. We can get that without sacrificing the parkway. So if there are questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Or if I can't get an answer, if I can't give you an answer, I'll come back with one. I can get back to people by email.
I just want to say thank you very much for all the work that you're doing on that. It's definitely important to have the community engagement, and yeah, it's really sad to see when so much growth is removed. So thank you for your work on that.
Well, we're going to keep fighting.
And he reached out to me. We have friends in common, and I can tell you that I knew from just the initial message he was a man on a mission. He's out there. He's talking about what he's seeing, and he's prepared. He's doing all the outreach. You are working very hard, and power to you.
We have a group of, it's probably about 15 people that are working really hard on this. We have retired engineers, hydrologists. We have a guy who's working on his PhD, and his PhD just happens to be on the history of flood control in California. And we've, you know, we're not a bunch of people that are saying not in my backyard. We're very concerned about the parkway. It's one of the reasons almost all of us involved in this live where we live is because it is such a jewel. And we really think we can have flood control, erosion protection, and still maintain a wild and scenic American river.
Any questions for Pete?
Are there any questions for Callie?
Yes, any questions for Callie? Callie looks ready to go also.
She's smarter than I am.
She is very cute.
I grew up along the American River, on the other side of the river from you. I grew up on the Carmichael side. You're on the Rancho Cordova side.
Yes.
So I know the river well. When I was in high school, I rode the bike trail from Watt all the way up to Fair Oaks and back and considered it a light afternoon's enjoyment. So I know what those river banks look like. They're in my soul. And thank you for...
Yeah, we appreciate any help. And if you sign up through our website, we can send you updates. We will try to keep you posted on public meetings, anything that's coming up, any ways that you can support us. So we're not going to inundate you with emails every day, but you know, you could probably expect to hear from us every other week or so.
All right, that you guys are organized. You are definitely getting the information out and organizing the people, and I admire your approach. So thank you very much. We are grateful. I hope you will stay and listen to our next conversation, which is also about environmental justice matters with the AB 617 state grant, which is AB 617 is a grant about getting air quality monitoring in industrialized areas. And Mangan Park is at the end of the executive airport on the takeoff and landing end. And we have had problems with lead toxicity in our neighborhood in recent history. Maybe from long-term exposure, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and a bunch of leaded fuel from the World War II era, but maybe also currently. So Mangan Park is advocating to be included in the AB 617 study boundary. We currently are not, but we are hoping to be included. So we are welcoming back the steering committee. Rhonda, you're not the president, but you're the vice president of the steering committee. Oh, you're on mute. Still on mute.
I am one of the original steering committee members, and I am the co-lead of our outreach committee. And this is part of outreach. Okay, so
thank you very much for joining us this evening. And actually, it's a return for Rhonda. She's been here before. And with her is Sarra. I hope I say your name right. Falakfarsa.
Yeah, very close. It's Sarra Falakfarsa. And I'm with the Sac Metro Air District working on the AB 617 program. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak and share a little bit of this information with you. We do have a presentation, a brief one, if I am able to share my screen.
Let me get that for you.
Thank you. Okay. Are you all able to see the presentation? Make sure it's displayed properly. Okay.
I see it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, I will go ahead and hand it off to Rhonda to introduce and kind of let you know what we're going to be sharing with you today.
Okay, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so you had said that the AB 16 South Sacramento Florida Communities grant was for industrialized areas, but it's also for residential areas as well. Jennifer, I just want to let you know that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, we're not just zooming in on industrialized, but those are the areas that usually have the pollution problems, but it's for even areas that are populated with community and residents and so forth. So, and we were established back in 2018, and I've been a part of it since the inception of the group. And we partner with Sarah's company, which is the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District. And we're here to focus on communities disproportionately impacted by air pollution. There could be industrialized areas or home environments as well. And we support improved health by inspiring actions to reduce air pollution exposure. So we aim to educate the community and industries about problematic air quality. Next. The next slide, please. So I'm not here to really talk at you. I came back to listen to you and to specifically get your sound input on where we can expand our boundaries. And we've already heard that you want your area included. So we would love to do that. We are currently getting close to completing our CAMP, which is a community level air monitoring plan. And the boundaries we had for that were limited to what we understood and what we were told that we could do. Now we're getting ready to transition to CERP, which is the Community Emission Reduction Program, and we can expand our boundaries as much as we need to. There's no restrictions, okay? So that's why we're here. Can you show them the next slide? So this is the little outline boot-shaped boundary. That's the boundaries that we had doing our camp, okay? And we expanded it somewhat because it did not go up to the top part. We went up to 44th Street and near Campbell Soup, the old Campbell Soup building, and we expanded it a little bit outwards as well. But we were basing it on the funding, and we didn't have enough money to put monitors everywhere simultaneously. So that's kind of how we got the boundaries we have. So now we'd like to open it up and find out where is your area on this map. And I'm gonna let Sarah talk to you about what areas you want to mark on the map so that we can be sure to include it. So Sarah, you take it away.
Thank you, Rhonda. So yeah, with this transition to the SERP, as Rhonda mentioned, it's an opportunity for us to revisit these boundaries, the community boundaries for the program. And so what we really want to do is connect with you all and get community input and feedback on areas of concern in terms of where you think that the boundaries should be for this revisited time where we're going to be discussing the expansion of the boundary. So there are a couple of ways that you can provide this feedback to let us know which areas you would like to see included. And so this map here is an example of the type of map that we were providing as part of the survey, and that you'll see later on when I show you this online mapping tool that you can point to specific areas on. But the overall idea is that we would really love and appreciate to have responses in terms of areas of concern. So if you could even mark on the map, as well as attending our meetings. Our next upcoming meeting on June 4th is going to be part of the community boundary discussion. And that is going to be a hands-on activity that would be really, really great to, and we would recommend everyone to come in person so that you can maximize your participation in that. And so that's just a little introduction to what's going to be coming up. I just wanted to show this, and then I can explain that this map will be a part of the survey. So I believe that Janice and Rhonda had visited and spoke at one of the meetings about the SAC Clean Air survey. And so, as you know, like the survey has been circulating and we've been getting responses on this. One of the questions on this survey is specifically to pinpoint those areas that people are interested in the boundary to be expanded to. And so I can actually go through and show you that tool and how to use it. And then I can follow up with information and share that all back with you, Jennifer, PDFs of this survey with the maps. And there'll be some different ways that you can go ahead and community members can submit their feedback. So I'll go ahead and just share the online electronic survey first, and then I can share a little bit more about how to provide feedback written by email or mail.
Okay, thank you. Questions? I'm checking who is still here. Barry Boyd is very well informed in these matters. I'm not seeing that Barry's here. He's having a lot of problems with his connection tonight. It happens. Other questions?
I might add that we plan to take a bus tour to the areas where we're expanding. Okay, so that's why it's critical that we get your feedback as soon as possible, so we can add that location that you want to include in the bus tour.
Yeah, and also if I could just show you really quickly what that electronic tool looks like, to give a little introduction to it. It's going to be like a map where you can zoom into different parts of Sacramento. And then you can click on the areas of concern and it drops this blue pin. Once you have that blue pin and the location that you would like, you can adjust it accordingly and then provide additional information here on why it's an area of concern or any other information you'd like to share with us in terms of feedback. And so this is active and I will share the link over email, but it is also at the end of this presentation that we've just shared, and I will also send that over to you, Jennifer. But we have that, and then if people would prefer, they're also able to print out the paper map attached to the survey and send it as a picture to the AB 617 clerk email, or even mail it to the district, and then we can incorporate all that feedback.
Okay, so the neighborhoods with the most survey results wins?
No, not necessarily. No. It's going to be all based off of the discussion. And Rhonda, you can go ahead and add to that.
No, we're looking at all neighborhood associations within the South area, and whatever recommendations they provide us, we're going to go through them and see if they're feasible and add them to the expansion of the boundaries.
Okay.
But we will vet out those recommendations, you know what I'm saying, to see if there's a concern, what is the concern and how much it impacts the community and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're planning on taking all of the feedback and areas of concern and compiling it to get a good idea of all the areas, and we're doing more outreach too, just like we're coming here to talk with you all today, so we can hopefully get as much coverage from as many areas as possible in terms of hearing the areas of concern, and then all of that will be taken back to the steering committee and discussed between the steering committee, and there will be opportunity for public comment and all of that in our public meeting.
Okay, do the California Enviro scan and the federal EPA Enviro scan, are they also factored into the decision-making process?
The Cal Enviro screen?
Yes.
So those tools that were involved in the initial process for identifying communities of like where there might be air quality concerns. But for this specific discussion around the boundary, it's going to be with input from community members, what we've heard from and feedback over the years, and then also what the steering committee determines to discuss and move forward with in terms of that. So there has been analysis done in that way initially, but for this specific step, it's going to be based off of feedback, community outreach, and then the discussion of the steering committee.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And before I open it up with other questions, the bus tour, is there a date set, or should I email, or how will
Not yet.
or we learn more?
We will reach out to the different neighborhood associations to let you know the dates of the bus tour. So that way you won't be left out.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there is information on our webpage. So I actually still have it up sharing. When you get to the community air protection page, there's an area where there's information about the community meetings. And then we also have different things posted here in terms of public noticing. So we will share all of that information here, as well as send out a public notice. And then we can also reach out, like Rhonda mentioned, to make sure that you're aware of all the dates and how to participate in that. But this is also where you can find a calendar, our meeting calendar. So this is the for the year. And you can see that the meeting that we had initially on May 27th was rescheduled to June 4th. So this is the upcoming meeting. It's going to be in person, like we were mentioning, recommended to be in person so it can be more hands-on. But there will also be a remote option for people to participate in discussion or debrief if they're not able to come in person.
Very, very, very comprehensive. Thank you. Are there questions out there for them? No. Once again, I'm just gobsmacked. Is this the Mangan Park meeting, really? Chris, your hand is up. Yes, please.
I might as well ask a question. Why not? So I've lived in California my whole life. Southern California in the 70s, if you guys can think of the smog, I was there. So my question to you is this. We live in a basin. We are surrounded by agricultural businesses. And I know that there's a big push for people to ride and, bikes and take public transportation. My big question is, what about trees? Planting trees can really help with the carbon and all the stuff in the air. Are there programs? Are there support systems for people in poor neighborhoods to help them get into tree planting? Things that just it's also nice for the environment. It's nice to have green around you. I hear a lot of people say, well, some privileged neighborhoods have trees, but it's like you can get trees from SMUD. Trees can be free. And I personally would love to have a group. I know there's tons of people who would like to help other neighborhoods plant trees. So, and that's a small thing, but I think it makes a big difference, and it changes your attitude about your environment too, because to have something beautiful out there, the birds can come and see the squirrels feeding. It just changes your whole perception, on top of everything else, on top of helping with the air. So do you have any comments or, anything that you can inform us about regarding programs that are possible for that sort of thing?
Rhonda, you can go ahead and I can see what to add.
Well, we have been working with the Sacramento Tree Foundation. As a matter of fact, they weren't members of our steering committee, but we invite the public to participate on our committees. And so they sat on our committee and helped to identify areas where we need trees. They also organize tree planting ceremonies throughout our area. One of the concerns that we have, areas that were targeted, there was no way to keep it watered. The city didn't want to pay for the water. So, so then if we planted them, they would just die. So we had that kind of a standoff, between the city and the county in terms of who's going to pay for the water. How you divided strips on the streets, and you put trees there to kind of help. And those areas we couldn't figure out, well, who's going to pay for the water if we planted? That was what came up. But we plan
That sounds interesting, because I would think that the city would want to help, because they talk about helping, more challenged neighborhoods. And so that would be the easiest thing to do, is to help, with watering the trees, but also with sustainable ways of capturing and collecting water, and support with that. And also, what I was going to say, native plant gardens. Those are huge right now. So anyway.
Yeah, we've got.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, we have some things to overcome, but we have invited the Sacramento Tree Foundation to work with us in this area, and we invite them to, to share how they can give out free trees to the community as well. So, I see a question from Julie.
I do, but I'm going to stay on this topic for just a second. I also want to put in a plug for the Meadowview Tree Foundation, getting trees into Meadowview. So in South Sac, look for the Meadowview Tree Foundation as well.
All right.
Sorry, Julie, your turn.
Good to know.
Yeah, good to know. No, thank you so much. Very interesting presentation. It'll be really interesting to see what comes out of that study. I'm always interested in seeing the community year study. So amazing work. And I do also want to say, Rhonda, we had the same experience along, so I'm in Hollywood Park Neighborhood Association. So I actually live right along Freeport. Freeport is right behind my fence right there.
Okay.
So there's the Freeport Boulevard transportation plan, and we also really wanted some new trees to go in to kind of green up Freeport and provide shade for walkers and cyclists and everything. And exact same response, that the city would not pay for the water for the trees, and we were pretty shocked. And then also it was it was it's really unfortunate. I feel like that's just the city's not really investing in their neighborhoods, really.
No.
And so, we've definitely been vocal about it on our side. You are not alone.
Well, maybe we'll keep being vocal, the both of us.
And
it's
also,
it's like an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't go together,
I know. City of trees, but we're not going to pay for water for new trees.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. But also, we have had a long partnership, many years, with the Sacramento Tree Foundation, and they have done just an amazing job working with some of our neighborhood partners to get the word out about trees. And we've had, I'd say, I think over 100 new trees planted in people's front and backyards over the years, and that number is likely a lot higher. So they were very supportive, very helpful in everything that they did. So I'm very excited to hear that you guys are working with them and partnering. We had a great experience.
Right. Their leader that was on our committee, she moved on, and then somebody else is going to be replacing her.
Okay.
So I don't remember the new person's name. So, but we hope to reach out and continue that dialogue to keep that trees coming, so that we can plant them and get our air. That'll help. But we were going to put it in the areas where there's a lot of industry with a lot of smoke, because it can help impact that, and kind of control it a little better. But once again, it was on the dividers of the streets. So
we feel your pain, and absolutely
we
support
just got to keep being vocal. That's all.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
And talking to each other about this. Rhonda lives in North Laguna, so the very southern tip of the city. We're kind of close to the core. Woot woot. We're talking to each other and realizing that we're all should come together more, which is a little bit of what Mangan Park loves to do, is let's get us all together and speaking up together, because then we get a lot louder.
Okay, that's right. I also represent North Laguna Creek Valley High Community Association. I'm the president, so I'm really involved in the community. I see somebody's hand up.
Yep, that's Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, the subject about air quality of air came up recently at one of our board meetings, and somebody provided some information, kind of a chronology of a little bit of the history of the the now, I guess, the executive airport. It's interesting. While heavy leaded fuels were used in American aviation completely through the late 1950s, I guess I think it was 1976, when there was a concerted effort made to switch to unleaded fuels for cars. Aircraft had an exemption, and aircraft were still using, because of that exemption, fully leaded fuels until 1996.
Wow.
And most small engine planes are still using leaded fuels. And I bring this up because Jennifer mentioned about leaded fuels in the 30s and 40s. I'm like 70s, 80s, 90s.
And now, huh?
Yeah, and because pre-existing aircraft prior to 1996, which is where most small planes are from, it's a concern for us, is a concern for, I'm sure, Mangan Park, Hollywood Park, the west end of Oak Park. Planes, their flight path is to take off, in that sort of northeast direction over those neighborhoods, and the flight path for planes coming in is basically Highway 99. And as anybody in Mangan Park knows, is you get a real good view of the undercarriage of some airplanes sometimes, because every now and then when they divert them, we get quite a close view as well over here, because they just move them over about 2 or 3 blocks from Highway 99 when they do the approach. But yeah, I don't think most people have an idea of what's in aircraft fuel and how it's not like cars. They did not convert to unleaded fuel.
That's something I think you should add on the map and note that, so that we can add that within our boundaries, to expand the boundaries rather. I've heard that before, so I think we should add that. So if somebody
and I want to give scientific evidence to what Eric is saying before we take the next hand, which is 2 summers ago, I coordinated with the United Latinos when they had a $500,000 grant from the city for air quality monitors in the South area. And a control monitor was put in at St. Rose Catholic Church over on, I think it's Franklin. Yeah. And a monitor was put on the roof of the Mangan Park pool house. And they took samples of PM 2.5 and lead. And the lead levels in Mangan Park were still higher than the lead levels at St. Rose Catholic Church. So it's still within FDA approved levels. There's nothing that got collected that says, lawsuit, fire alarms, wooga wooga, must stop now. But we're still higher than Franklin Boulevard, which is got a lot of car traffic on it. St. Rose is not in a place that's known for its beautiful, fragrant, fresh air, but we still have more lead. So, and that's in the air because the monitor was on top of the pool house.
Okay.
So we're happy to include that evidence. Richard Falcone and the United Latinos should still have all of that for you.
Okay.
And how do we get that put in as a consideration for the AB 617 boundaries? Do I need to fill out an extra report or anything?
No, just pinpoint on the map and write a little summary in the space where it has a room for a description, and just say you've got data to prove that it's high. And even though it doesn't reach the level that's outside of the scope where it's dangerous, people might still be getting sick from those high levels, with asthma and other related types of issues. So yes, go ahead and add it.
Yeah, the CalEnviro screen says the census tract for Mangan Park and Hollywood Park are in the 94th percentile for respiratory diseases in the state of California.
Yeah.
The Federal Environmental Scan gives us the same rating. So from living here 20 years and talking to my neighbors who have lived here more than 10 years. I have not yet found a household that's lived here more than 10 years that doesn't have a family member with a respiratory disease.
Yeah.
COPD and asthma are dead common, and I
believe it.
am an adult onset asthma sufferer.
Okay, that's why I said add it, you know. And then when we
Okay.
come together, once it's on our list, when we come together to vet it, that's gonna probably take a high priority, you know what I'm saying, to expand it and make sure that we put some monitors there and then take some corrective action to fix this thing, you know. And we've got the air quality district behind us to help us do that kind of thing, so.
Excellent. I will be happy to log that. Julie, you log it too. Well, shout and stomp really loud for this area. And Barry, I'm sorry, you've been waiting a long time. Barry?
He's on mute still.
So odd. Barry, are you there? Barry. I know. There you are.
I'm here with just tremendously bad coverage and a grandson who's just cranky as you're hearing fading away in the distance crying. But I just want to make a comment because every time I try to chat, it goes away. But good evening, Sarah. Earlier in the conversation, you guys were talking about how the city doesn't want to pay for water for new trees. But for those who want to, you guys can continue to push and ask the city, well, how much do you guys pay to water the trees in East Sacramento? Because the city does water those trees along the main corridors in East Sac throughout the fabulous 40s. And it's under the Department of, it may be under Department of, not Department of Utilities, maybe in the Department of Utilities, but I know the city of Sacramento actually does pay for those, the watering, and the trees that are behind the sidewalk or on the property of the housing, then the property owner pays for. But every tree that's in front of the sidewalk closest to the street, the city pays for. So the same thing you guys had, it's dirty over there, with PPB, the city, don't see it, but Caity, sorry folks, didn't want to pay for the new trees on Stockton Boulevard either. But anyway, I just want to make that comment out. Let me get on. Caity, didn't I just tell you it's dirty? Step back.
Okay.
Dealing with two grandkids. Thank you.
That's interesting. Maybe they're watering it because they already exist, because we're trying to put some in and they're not agreeing to pay for water for new trees to be planted. So
exactly, Rhonda, and that's exactly what we heard, is that they will not pay for watering new trees. So yeah, Barry, thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, we heard that they will not pay for water for new trees, which is again very unfortunate. Because East Sac is beautiful. We would love to have that number of trees.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna keep hope alive. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys tried to like get grants or something? Or, you know, like for instance, with Land Park, and Rick Stevenson can say this, Land Park doesn't use city water. It's got wells that were built like in the 1920s, or, you know, when the park, you know, was built. And I'm not saying, you know, that same sort of infrastructure would work in other neighborhoods, but there's got to be a way to get water collection and have sustainability, as far as if you can't do it one way, think outside the box and do it another way to get those trees watered. You know, maybe there's a way where you can't rely on the city for it. Maybe there's a volunteer group or an organization or a grant where you could still make it happen. You know, because I think sometimes I hate hearing like, well, we can't do this because the city won't pay for it. It's like, yeah, I know it sucks. You know, the city should, but if they're not going to, there's got to be another way, right? Something to think about.
Okay, that's good to think about. There's always more than one way to skin a cat, you know. old cliche. Yes.
Very true. Yeah, it's a good idea to look into different grants. Thanks.
Jennifer, could I chime in for a second? I've been trying to raise my hand, but I use Safari, and I think maybe Safari and Zoom don't get along all that well. I'm going to have to start using Google Chrome. But I mean, this again just shows, number one, I'm really familiar with the Sacramento Tree Foundation because I play tennis with Ray Trethway, their former executive director, almost once a week, and Ray's one of the greatest guys in the world. And this just reinforces some of the stupidity of the Corps wanting to remove so much vegetation, including trees, from the American riverbank, where trees have access to the water that nobody has to pay for. Here we have a thriving, mature forest right through the center of the city, and the Army Corps of Engineers is ripping it apart. So there is a better way to accomplish their goals and preserve the parkway and provide trees and canopy that not only cool the water for the salmon, but also clean the air for all of us.
I agree. Yes.
Questions, comments, thoughts?
I just wanted to add that these have all been really good comments and lots of really great feedback, and this information and any other thoughts you or any other community members may have about the area can go ahead and put them into the survey, which we have in a bunch of different languages for accessibility. So if that's the survey that was shared back in January, Jennifer, that Janice had shared. And so the map survey question is actually embedded in that. And so that's where you can really do the pinpointing for the areas. And so I will follow up and provide all of this to you. And then if you could send it out to your group, that would be fantastic. And anyone else who you think might have feedback, and there, are good questions on here too that are asking kind of what are your concerns, and there are options like airplanes and other environmental factors. So I think that hearing that from you all is important to us.
And to add to that, we hope that we could get the feedback as soon as possible, especially before our next meeting. Was it June 2nd or 3rd, somewhere there?
June 4th.
4th, okay. That would be helpful because that's the meeting where we're going to start talking about expanding boundaries and making decisions on adding to the list.
I will work on Mangan Park people filling out the survey and responding. I think Julie's thumb is up because Julie's like, yep, me too. She'll be working with Hollywood Park.
Okay.
I think Eric has excused himself, but I don't think Eric will be far behind us.
Okay.
And Ron Braswell is from Cabrillo Park, which is south of the airport. He's been quiet, but I suspect Ron is also like looking stuff up right now and thinking about how to communicate with Cabrillo Park. So thank you very much. You've done an excellent job helping us. You are right now coming to Mangan Park and talking to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 neighborhoods at one time.
Right. Just help us get the word out and get those surveys in and go to the interactive map and pinpoint where the areas you want us to add. So.
Okay. Got it. I think I am clearer about what we can do. I will do that. Unfortunately, I have a commitment on June 4th. I won't be able to attend that meeting, but I'll be more than happy to send an email or a letter or something in advance.
That'd be great.
Stating more of the Mangan Park case. And I'll see if I can't find somebody from Mangan Park who wants to represent.
That'd be great. Well, we appreciate you giving us this time on your agenda.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I was excited when I heard you had the availability to come this evening. For those who are here, we put this together on super short notice, like within the last week. There was a last minute Zoom call because something else got canceled, and I got a text saying get in the meeting now, and I'm like, what meeting? And hopped in, and they're talking about doing more community outreach, and I'm like, I got like 15-20 minutes on an agenda to fill, and still can you come? And we managed to make it happen because it was perfect. It's like one of those serendipity things when it's a week before the meeting and I'm still like, I don't know what I'm going to do at that time. And then you guys showed up and have been wonderful. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we were glad to do it.
And as much as I'm closing down that agenda item, everyone's welcome to stay. If I know we are at 2 hours and everyone's exhausted, but before I close the meeting, I wanted to just briefly talk about the city budget reductions that are coming. Since we do have so many neighborhood associations present, please do stick around. I will make this far briefer than planned and as painless as possible. At the start of the meeting, Ryan Brown touched on it. He's saying that City Manager Howard Chan will release his initial budget reductions proposal tomorrow morning. I probably am on one of their mass email lists and we'll get that. If you are on a city mass email list, be looking for that tomorrow morning before 10 a.m., Ryan said, so that we can see it. Ryan did give us, a bit of reassurance that there's no level 3 and 4 reductions in core city services and parks. So if you are not aware, Mangan Park, along with several other neighborhood associations this week, sent a letter to Howard Chan and the City Council saying that we're opposed to level 3 and 4 cuts in SacPD, SAC Fire, and parks. So the initial proposal does not have that in it, which is reassuring. But I want to also, while we've got community leaders here, tell you what I have learned from working with Assistant City Manager Lainey Milstein the last couple of weeks. Because I did coordinate with other neighborhood associations and catch the attention of the city manager's office early on and try to make certain that we understood the process so that we could organize our communities. Neighborhood associations are feeling very left out of city budgeting processes and finances. One of the reasons I've identified is that we're coming in behind proposals instead of ahead of proposals. When you come in behind, you have a lot less leverage. So one, I'm letting you know, the neighborhoods are already in. We got a letter with, in 3 days, we got 22 signatories, 4 neighborhood associations, 17 private individuals who are in community associations to sign one letter, which basically was flagging it and saying the neighborhoods are here. Even if you're not a signatory, I want you to know we were fighting for all of us, even if the letter was kind of general. Y'all are in. Okay. So now that we're all in and I got us a seat at the table, if we want to have the most impact, we need to stay at the table. And here's how you stay at the table. There is a budget and audit meeting at 11 o'clock on May 7th that we should have a couple of people in to listen and watch and maybe have some comments. There will be a May 7th City Council meeting. And I can show you the little, I can get that for you. Hang on. Nope, that's not it. Then sharing screen so that you can see this. Here we go. Share that one. So, May 7th at 5 p.m. is a proposed budget hearing on the agenda. We'll want to have some people there. I can't do that like June 4th. My Tuesdays for May and June are occupied, but I would love for a couple of neighborhood leaders to be at the May 7th at 5 p.m. City Council meeting. Then there's almost a rinse repeat on May 14th, only it's not an 11 a.m. budget and audit meeting. It is a 2 p.m. City Council meeting and a 5 p.m. City Council meeting. What's going to be happening on May 7th and May 14th is the council members are going to be taking this initial budget proposal of Howard Chan's, and they are going to be suggesting that some of his items come out and other items go in. There is a supplemental list of possible things that council members can suggest to be put in. Those level 3 and 4 items are still in that list. Just because Howard Chan says it's possible without level 3 and 4 cuts does not mean that level 3 and 4 cuts might not still happen. If the city council, if enough of the city council says they want those cuts in, they can negotiate those cuts in. That'll be going down around the 7th and the 14th and the 20th. So this is the point where everybody needs to really carefully watch city council members and listen for what's being taken out of Chan's proposal and put into Chan's proposal. And be in communication with your council members every week about what you see going in and what you think about what's going in. And then May 28th at the 11 a.m. Budget and Audit Committee meeting is the final budget review. And they're supposed to do a final vote on June 11th. So June 11th, that is right around the corner. This is going to go by so fast. Basically, Chan releases his first proposal tomorrow, and it's game on for the next 3 weeks. And neighborhood associations who want to have a say in it need to spend some time every week. And then I'm going to wait for the May 20th Measure U meeting to see how that goes. If we've got alarm bells going off about level 3 and 4 cuts, if it looks like our core services or our parks are in trouble, I will send out another flare to say we need to get together and do another letter.
Okay.
And both, even if people can't all sign one, if we can get some commonalities and get a couple of letters that are all heavily signed, we will shout much louder and we will hold our place at the table and we will have a little leverage to work with because we were there from the beginning saying no. And maybe if we need to, we can show up at the end. So that's the basic outline. And Chris, you've got a comment going. What you got?
I just want to let everybody know, Jen, thank you so much for your hard work. Jen really crafted the letter and, went out there and advocated for the letter and got the neighborhood associations and other leaders involved. And that was really helpful. Today I posted an article on the Land Park Neighborhood Association page. So if you go to our website, landpark.org, and you scroll down to latest news, you'll see it. It's got the links, it's got the letter, it's got, it also has Rick Jennings, who is our District 7 City Council person. He just put an article in the Land Park News, and that article is there, and he talks about the same thing that Jen was saying, is that we need to focus on supporting our core services right now, that the city really needs to pull back. And one of the biggest issues right now is nonprofits and consultants and groups that they're not fully transparent on how the money's being spent. And we need to make sure that we're getting enough bang for our buck, as taxpayers, to make sure that those services are actually doing something that they were meant to do. But they should not replace our core services. And that is the problem. We're talking about maintenance, police, fire, parks. They're already cut. They've already had to deal with budget cuts. They have not recovered from the last, what was it, 8 years ago or 9 years ago, Jen? When they had to, cut services. They haven't recovered from that. We talk with Jackie Beecham from Parks all the time, and it's like, they're struggling. They got over like 250 parks and and waterways and bike paths that they have to support and maintain. And I don't know how many, I can't recall how much staff they have, but they don't have enough staff for that. And they definitely don't have enough park rangers. So, yeah, this is really, really important, because it's like, if you want your kids to go to a park and be safe, and if you want the trash to get picked up, you call 911 and you're hoping that you don't get an answering machine, but an actual person. These are the kind of things that they're looking at cutting. So I don't want to sound alarmist or anything, I'm just saying, like, we sat with Chief Lester, a bunch of neighborhood groups. We sat with her and we looked at those budget cuts, and they're really looking at cutting the police budget. Now, the 1 and 2 cuts, Chief Lester's like, yeah, these are great. But when you get to 3 and 4, we're talking about boots on the ground officers. We're talking about core services for public safety. They're looking at cutting, like, for instance, human trafficking investigators. Well, we're a hub for human trafficking. Why would they want to do that? These are the kind of things we need to think about. I know a lot of people aren't so concerned about this stuff until it shows up to their door. And that is the problem, is some of this stuff is shown up to people's doors. And if we have these cuts, it will continue to.
Questions for Chris? Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no. Chris, excellent job. Adding in some other facts about what's going on. While you were talking, I went and got some stuff to put in the chat. These are the core links that you will want to have that I have been sending out everywhere. And hang on, there we go. So if you're looking for me, the master list of all possible services and staff that could be reduced. If you're going to the May 7th or May 14th meetings, you want to have a copy of those in your hand. That's what they're doing. They're going to be looking at that list and negotiating off of that list. If you know that list and you've already marked it for, yeah, I'm okay with it, and oh, hell no, then when they start talking about it, you're not surprised and you're like, you're talking about doing what? Anything that's on that list is fair game. Like, they created that master list by asking the department heads of all the possible ways their department could be cut 15%. All possible ways. So it's 5 pages long and tiny little print of every department reporting all the ways their department could be cut 15%. And then it's listed at level 1 or the least severe at the top, and level 4 are at the worst. So, you know, it's good that Howard Chan says that there's a way through, and maybe that'll still happen, but we need to be ready for anything from that master list to wind up in coming out of our city council's members' mouth. And we need to be ready to go and talk to our council member and say, not that one. Let that one go. Not that one. We don't like that one. And then also, there's another one here from agenda item number 3 of a budget and audit meeting where the finance director, Peter Colleto, gave the budget and audit committee the initial presentation on the budget reduction process. So his presentation is 15 minutes, and then there's about 15 more minutes of council members asking him questions about it. And the supplemental materials master list is also brought up. That's a good little primer that doesn't take too long to share with other people to help you understand the process as well. So those are 2 key things to help neighborhoods through the process: is an overview from the director of finance, and then those supplemental materials. And if I hear more alarm bells, no, I will be reaching out and, you know, across the city and letting everybody know about some things that they might want to get more involved in. And so, yep, it looks, Rhonda, thank you so very, very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
You've been marvelous.
Thank you.
And same to you, Sarah. You're welcome to stay, but as long as, you know, she's signing off, I thought I'd also let you know. You've been fabulous too. Thank you.
Thank you
Are
so
there
much.
any? Yes.
All right.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you.
You too.
Yeah.
It was better because you were here.
Thank you.
So this is the down and dirty. A couple of things for neighborhood associations to know heading into this process. And the more we stick together, the more likely we are to come through happier with the result. Any other last questions on that?
Thanks for sharing all the links.
You're welcome. I've been spreading them about. Go get your facts for yourself. I believe everybody should have the right to make them up for themselves. You know where I stand, but maybe you stand someplace else. And then anybody got a fun event coming up? Anything fun you want us to know about?
Okay, I'll volunteer something.
Okay.
Just that we just got our neighborhood, our Curtis Park Music in the Park events scheduled for the 3rd Sunday of June, July, and August. So, you know, come on over, sit on the lawn and listen to some bands.
Yay! I love what you guys do there.
That's
I
awesome.
love that.
So anyway, yeah.
So
on that note, I gotta run because my battery's about to die and kick me off again.
I understand. So glad you could join us. It's time for us to catch up.
Absolutely. See y'all later.
Bye, con Dios, amigo.
Alrighty, bye.
And in other news, Mangan Pool is scheduled to open June 15th. We are just waiting for the budget process to tell us if we get it open 5 days a week or 3 days a week. One of those is possible. So that's our happy thought, and maybe we'll get an ice cream social about then too. We're working with Caity Maple's office on that. Hollywood Park got something going. Meadowview, Land Park.
Land Park, I don't have the date yet, but we do have a Jazz in the Park coming up with Rick Jennings. So we're definitely going to have that coming up. And then in the fall, we're going to have our second Parktober Fest, which is a huge fundraiser for LPCA, but we also take some money and we always give it to some of it to a good cause. So, but it's a blast. It was sold out last year, and this year it's going to be awesome. People will get to wear girls wear their dirndls and guys wear their lederhosen, and there's beer and German food and music. And we're looking at getting a German, I don't know if it's going to be an accordion player or whatever, but he's going to do some drinking songs in between. And we have a band, and it's going to be at the golf course in the park, in Land Park.
That sounds
marvelous.
Super fun. Looking forward to all of these things.
Get our tickets now.
Yeah, right. Oh man. Let's see. Hollywood Park. We will likely have a 4th of July parade again. Last year was a huge hit. We had I think over close to 200 people who attended. It was massive. It was we were happily amazed at the number of people. It was really cool. And a lot of people showed up with their little kids and decorated bikes and everything. It was pretty awesome. And then we will also have another movie night and ice cream social. That's usually towards the fall, but those will definitely be on the agenda as well.
Wonderful. I have not been to your 4th of July thing yet. I want to go.
Yeah, we'll see what it will. I'm so curious to see what this year is going to look like, because last year it was like, whoa, this is cool. Hopefully we'll get a similar turnout.
And Barry, anything in Meadowview?
Not that I can say. Sorry, folks. Like I said, my signal is so bad out here. I keep coming and going.
No worries.
But,
no worries at all.
Oh, you know what? There is something in Meadowview. Oh my goodness. I should have written it down. But this, you know what? My apologies. I forgot, but there's a couple things that Councilmember Vang is doing in Meadowview, and I can't remember what they are. My apologies. But anyway, with that said, folks, I'm gonna have to disconnect because I'm about to lose my signal again. But hey, it was a great meeting for that, the part that I could actually hear and listen to. Oh, but I did have questions for McCarty, but my signal was so bad it wouldn't have made sense for me to try to ask the questions. But nothing pressing. Yeah, I was just going to grill him a little bit on his stance on throwing unhoused folks in jail versus trying to find a different solution. But no biggie. But with that said, folks, it was wonderful. In next month's meeting, I'll make sure I'm at home so my signal is great. See you later, Jen.
And I don't know quite what we're going to do for next month's meeting. But I got some ideas. I have to do a little outreach and check in, but still save the 4th. Well, we've always got a problem with the Memorial Day weekend. I'll see what I can get, if we can get the next meeting in before Memorial Day weekend. Because that's a tricky one in May. It's really hard to get people's attention after Memorial Day in May. So I think I was kind of mentally looking at the maybe the 15th or the 16th, the 20th to the 22nd, but I can't do the 21st. So the 20th, 22nd, and I know that by Wednesday before Memorial Day, You know, nothing after that, people. Don't attempt a Thursday or a Friday. Just don't. So we'll try to pull it back together again. One idea for a meeting either in May or later on this summer is, in the name of all fairness, to invite Flojan Kofer to answer questions very similar to the ones we just asked McCarty. Similar, the rules are the general engagement is always equal time and equal questions. Even if this was not a campaign event, we can never, like, when somebody's on the campaign, say that it is. Yeah, it's a tough one. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to find out what he had going on in the legislature, but then, okay, so how do I navigate this tricky territory? And I'll see what's going on with that, because somewhere along the line, I want to make certain that we give our mayoral candidates a chance to speak to us. So how I make that happen, I don't know yet. I have to work some things out. If you know of some great things for the Mangan Park Association to bring forward, let me know. I know we roll a little differently and we're a little bit more open. And I don't have a massive board to argue with. So I can travel a little faster and a little lighter because there's just a few of us. It goes a lot more smoothly that way. So shoot me any ideas you have. I'll be more than happy to take a look at them. Mangan Park is very central, and we roll with everybody else. The Switzerland of the South, I call us. Mostly neutral, mostly, but and working with everybody. So in the middle, and let's all get together. Otherwise, marathon meeting. It is now 8:29, good people. 2.5 hours since the beginning. This is, you know, powerful stuff, and you are people with endurance and commitment to your communities. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. Have a good night, everybody.
Same to all of you. Thank you again.